And welcome back, everyone. Our next presenter is PetVivo Holdings Inc. It trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol PETV and is an emerging biomedical device company currently focused on the manufacturing, commercialization, and licensing of innovative medical devices and therapeutics for companion animals. Please welcome its CEO, John Lai. Welcome, John.
We had a technical issue there. I don't know what happened.
That happens. It's okay. There you go. There you are.
We're back.
Okay, we're back. The floor is yours, John, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. My name's John Lai. I'm the CEO of PetVivo Holdings. We trade under the symbol PETV on the NASDAQ capital markets. There are forward-looking statements in this presentation. Before I get into company highlights, I'll give a brief description of what we have developed. We developed a protein particle matrix that mimics cartilage and tissue, has multiple applications in the companion animal space as well as the human space. So our initial product that we're launching September 6th at the Western Veterinary Conference is called Cush. Cush is used in the treatment of osteoarthritis. The TAM, or the total addressable market in the United States, is about $4.4 billion. Growing at 7% a year, and this number is dogs and horses. We will have a cat product coming along within 12 months. Kush is a veterinary device. How we got that designation is from our human clinicals, 145 human study where we used the same particles as a dermal filler. We went head-to-head against Reslin, and the FDA on the human side declared us as a device, and hence we're declared as a device on the veterinary side. What that means is there's no FDA pre-market approval or clearance that's required for us to sell our product. So the particles, once it's injected, it basically mimics the cartilage that was there, so it protects the joints. Also, we have treated other joint-related afflictions besides osteoarthritis. It's basically the same components and structure that's in natural cartilage, collagen, elastin, and heparin, and we sell exclusively to veterinary doctors, which will help them improve their margins, also drive traffic, as well as increase revenue. But we provide the pet owner a much better outcome for the costs. Literally, we can inject a lab, and we've seen many cases where the lab is 12, 13 years old, barely able to stand after the injection. Within 48 hours, the dog is running up and down the stairs. So there's tangible improvement in a very short period of time, but on top of that, we're in a society of instant gratification. This really makes the pet owner feel really good that they can go running with their dog. We have a very deep, extensive IP portfolio, 9 US, 12 foreign patents, and multiple patents pending. We got a very seasoned, experienced management team and a very active board of directors. So the opportunity that presents to us is osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis is basically bone-on-bone contact, where the cartilage is worn away, and that causes the inflammation and pain. The disease basically gets worse over time. It does not improve on it by itself. In the United States, there's approximately 14 million dogs and about 1 million horses. And I mentioned we'll be bringing in a feline product. So this is the opportunity that exists for us. The current solution is basically everyone out there is focused on treating the symptoms. No one's really looking at the cause of the problem, which is the bone-on-bone contact. And that's what we address that's different than anyone else. So the first line of treatment, which is the gold standard, is using NSAIDs. NSAIDs, once again, it's focused on masking the symptoms. There's known problems for prolonged use of liver, kidney problems, GI tract bleeding. Does nothing to halt or slow down the joint from degrading. Actually, it speeds it up. If you think about it, when you mask the pain, the dog's going to jump or run in situations it normally would not. And also, there's a factor of compliance from the pet owner. They have to give a pill once or twice a day. And just like on the human side, compliance is a major issue for the vets or the doctors. Steroids, hyaluronic acid is generally the next treatment protocol they would use. Slow acting, short in duration, once again requires multiple trips back to the veterinary doctor. Stem cells, PRP, requires harvesting blood, painful tissue harvesting. It's time sensitive, time consuming, expensive, and once again, multiple treatments to the vet clinic. So all these are just focused on masking symptoms and not addressing the problem. Kush, we believe, is the optimal disruptive solution for treating osteoarthritis. The biomaterials or the particles that we created basically mirrors the cartilage that's in the body. So once it goes into the body, it's basically neutral. It won't have any side effects. So we inject it through an intra-articular injection to the joint, which is not a difficult injection for the veterinary doctor to learn. They actually learned it in vet school, but a lot of them forgot how to do it. Yeah, I mean, you can literally go to YouTube and punch up intra-articular injection dogs, and it'll show you every injection necessary. And the components are, like I said before, is naturally found in cartilage. It's collagen, elastin, and heparin are our three base proteins, how we make the product. In our case studies, we have seen dogs and horses get injected with Kush and have lasted at least a year or well beyond. And we're able to make that claim because of our human clinicals. We tracked 145 humans for a year, and the particles were still in the body. So once we inject the dog, basically we have noticed that there's a great minimization of NSAIDs or just total not a need for NSAIDs whatsoever. So there's a lot of benefits to using ours, and it's a very effective and economical solution for treating OA. The Kush technology, it's unique new therapy addressing the root cause of the affliction, not the symptoms. It's a hydrated matrix. So if you look at the syringe there, that's a 2 cc syringe. And that generally fits about a medium-sized dog, like an 85-pound lab. That will inject one joint, a knee or an elbow. Hips may require a little bit more, but once again, the protein source is collagen, elastin, and heparin, and it's a wet particle. So once it goes into the joint, it basically supports the joint from day one. And we are supported by that 145 human clinical, and if you want to go, dig into the human clinical on the bottom, you'll see the website, clinicaltrials.gov, and then the number. And actually, this PowerPoint is on our website, PetVivo.com, and you can look at it for yourself after this. Mechanism of action. So we're mechanical, purely mechanical. All the other ones require biologics or pharmaceutical, which has side effects, multiple side effects. Kush basically, so the first, my slide kind of moved on me here. Let me move it up. So the first image shows bone-on-bone contact. The red actually shows inflammation and pain. And then when you inject our particles into the synovial joint or the synovial sac, the particles fill the space, and then it starts to form a scaffolding. So actually, the improvement in mobility and reduction in pain actually improves over the next 6 months. That's what we have observed. And think of it as once the particles are injected, it's like a bunch of wet sponges that have gone in there. So when the dog's running or jumping, it actually moves the particles around as the impact occurs like a wet sponge. But because it's wet, it actually lubricates the joint. So that's the major uniqueness of our product, is beyond just providing a barrier between the joints, it actually lubricates the joints. Canine success story, Hope is a golden doodle at 9 months old. The vet said that it had a congenital hip defect. So the rear left leg basically was not being used, and the right leg was overused, so it was super big, and the left side was very small. So this is one of those other joint afflictions. The veterinarian injected Kush, and over the first 3 weeks, there wasn't much improvement because the gating was wrong. It was a muscular issue. But after that, the dog steadily improved, and to date, that took about 6 or 7 weeks that you couldn't tell the dog ever had an issue. And on that single injection, it's lasted 7 years, which is pretty incredible. Sorry, I thought it was somebody messaging me here. Kush, equine success story, Fender Bender. Fender Bender is a racehorse at our local track here, Canterbury Park. The owner had injected other horses with Kush and had good results, but he wanted to identify a horse that had good times, then had a lameness issue that never recovered. It got an injury. So he claimed this horse for $3,000. in June of 2020. And August of 2020, we injected Kush into fender bender, actually at 4 different areas within the horse. And when I say we, it wasn't us, it was the track vet. And a couple of weeks later, fender bender got moved up a class and ran and got stuck in the gate actually and stumbled, gave the other horses a 10-length lead, but ended up catching all the other horses and winning the race. And not only did the horse run faster, but the key thing that the trainer told me is that the recovery time, Kush fender bender would take 2.5 weeks after a race before it could start training for the next race. Now it's 2 to 3 days and it could start training for the next race. And what that means is a lot more races for fender bender and more income for the owner. And you can look up fender bender's earnings pre-Kush was $6,000 a year. And last year he did close to $24,000, and he's pretty much on the same pace. So we're pretty excited to see these results happening. So the competitive distinction or competitive advantage that Kush has is we're focused on the infliction, the actual cause of the problem. We're getting better outcomes, and we're not focused on the symptoms like everyone else. The current treatments are biologic or pharmaceutical. Kush is natural. Price advantage, cost advantage, ease of application, intra-articular injection, multiple joints at the same time. We're providing the vet clinic exclusivity, which allows them to enhance margins. And we've treated over 100 dogs and horses successfully with Kush, where they have had tangible improvement in mobility. Spectrum of treatments, Kush, all the way to joint replacement. Joint replacement is being the most invasive, disruptive to the pet owner as well as the dog. So everything, if you look at joint replacement, everything to the left up to Kush is very temporary. It's focused on symptoms, has multiple side effect potentials, requires compliance from the consumer of going back to the vet clinic multiple times. And then where we really shine is the annual cost advantage, as well as providing better outcomes. So when you inject Kush, basically you're protecting the joint as well as increased activity. You're seeing that right away. And so you know there's reduction in pain, excellent safety profile. We know that from our 145 human patient studies that we track for a year. Typically 1 injection a year, and we've seen it last a lot longer. And the cost is $500 to $700 relative to the other one. But what we've also been seeing is, since we're a veterinary device, pet insurance is covering this. So that gives us a major cost advantage too. Now, one other thing we've been seeing, one of our surgical vets, Dr. Stern, on our advisory board for the last 4 or 5 years, have been using Kush after he does a joint replacement to inject into the joint he just replaced. He says that really stabilizes it and helps the recovery time dramatically for the dog. He's also been injecting the opposing joint, because 80% of the opposing joint within 2 years will fail, and because of the stress of the original joint replacement. But what I see here that we can do that no one else can is just the left of joint replacement. There should be a category for joint life extension. I believe that if we properly position and market this to the insurance companies, that insurance companies will require a surgeon to try Kush before doing a joint replacement, because we have seen where situations the vet would say we should replace this joint, and then they inject Kush and they don't have to replace the joint for several years. And then generally you don't need a joint replacement. On most dogs is 10 and their life expectancy is 12. So we feel there's a major opportunity there. And once it starts to mature, I believe that opportunity is about $1 billion a year. Production strategy. So our production facility is actually ISO certified 5, 7, and 8, which are human device, one of the highest human device certifications. We weren't required to do that on the animal health side of the FDA, so we took that extra step. We did the initial batch runs of 1,000 syringes and plan to increase to 5,000 syringes per month within 6 months. This facility has capacity of 500,000 syringes a year, which means top line revenue about $120 million, but we made this blueprint extremely scalable. 120 days and about $200,000, we can duplicate the facility so we can go to 1 million syringes and top line 240 million in top line revenue. Very comprehensive IP portfolio, 9 US patents, 12 foreign, very broad, clean language. How we know this is we are cited over 400 times by patent examiners and applicants when they're filing their patents. So we know that's very good language. But on top of that, which is even more important, is our protocols that are put in place to protect our trade secrets. We have great trade secret protection, and we're so it's beyond just having the patents. Market overview, companion animals. So U.S. pet spend has increased from 97.1 billion in 2019 to 103.6 billion in 2020. So basically for the last 10 years, the sector has grown well over 5%, and we expect that to continue. Vet care and products are the leading growth driver. It represents 30% of pet spend. Vet care in 2019 was 29.3 billion, in 2020, 31.7 billion. That segment is actually projected to grow at least 7% over the next 5 years. So what we really have going there is a lot of demographic drivers. Less and less people are getting married, less and less people are having children, so that pets become their children and they're willing to spend whatever it takes to enhance and improve the quality of life of their pets. It's also very recession-proof. And if you look at the total households that own pets, 68%, but since COVID, I believe it's closer to 71%. So in the US, there's 63.4 million dogs, 7.2 million horses. And I said within 12 months, we'll have a feline version of Kush. That opens up our TAM greatly, and that's about 42.7 million cats. So this next statistics really support the humanization of the pets. In 2012, what a pet owner was willing to spend on their dog before they refused treatment was $1,700. In 2020, it's $10,700, and I believe that trend will continue. Pet insurance is a rapid growing part of the market, so it's about 3% of the market, and the annual growth rate of the past 5 years has been 23.4%. So there's 1.8 million pets under insurance in 2016. 2020 is 3.45 million. I believe that to really escalate here in the next few years because of the fact that you're seeing traditional insurance companies really push pet insurance to their consumers. And provided that ours is a veterinary device and reimbursement, I feel this is a major tailwind that could be kicking into us in the next year or couple of years. The market is really ripe for an effective therapy, disruptive therapy, because for the last 15 years, everyone's just been focused on creating an NSAID that has less side effects or stem cells that have better efficacy. Our focus has been purely addressing the problem, what is creating all the pain and inflammation. So if you look at a product pipeline, at the beginning, I talked about our Kush particles having multiple applications. The first 5 on here is pretty much ready to go. We just need to support it with small studies to put us in place to launch the product and sell it to the veterinary doctors. Canine and equine are basically ready for, we are in commercial production and ready to really push from a sales standpoint at the Western Veterinary Conference on September 6th. Mucoadhesive device, it's a different category of products. Basically, it's a wafer that allows you to deliver whatever agent or drug into the bloodstream through the mucosal membrane, rooftop of your mouth, basically, at a 10x bioavailability. Example, dog that's barking out of control. People use CBD oil to calm down the dog, usually 6 to 10 drops. The 1 drop equivalent into the wafer would put it into the bloodstream much faster, and it would have the same dosing effect as taking it orally. Because when you take it orally into the gastrointestinal tract, stomach, there's multiple issues that some people have or some animals will have that doesn't exist when you go right into the bloodstream. Production and commercialization pipeline. Facilities sorted out pre-commercial production runs. We've done commercial production runs. We'll scale up first quarter of 2022 on the production, and then second production facility, fourth quarter of 2022. Commercialization, we'll do the initial vet launch September 9th at the Western Show. We'll let our key opinion leaders talk about the successes they have had. We have kept all of them pretty quiet because we didn't have the production facility ready to go. Now we do, and we'll let them publish white papers. We'll launch key regional markets with the KOL connections, full national rollout first quarter of 2022, international launch to selective countries first quarter 2023, expand international launch third quarter of 2023. Management team, we all have 30 years plus of experience in bringing products to market as well as developing products. Many of us have expertise in the human medical device area. Our bios are on the website, so I won't go into detail on those, but our board of directors, Greg Cash, chairman, he was marketing director for cardiac rhythm management at Medtronic in Asia. He basically ran Asia for marketing, Boston Scientific, US Surgical. On the sales side, Jim Martin, who is our audit chair, he is partner in the Orange County office of KPMG for the tax division he managed, and he's a CPA and a JD. Scott Johnson, very important from a quality control, quality assurance basis. That was his job at Boston Scientific, Symed Life, and at Stratego. He basically contracts out the companies like Philips Medical, Zimmer Biomet to go in and basically run what an FDA audit would be to look for deficiencies. We have a very strong board of advisors. Dr. Tracy Turner, he's equine vet, University of Minnesota, chief surgery of large animals, U.S. Olympic team. Dr. Brad Gordon, former Minnesota Racing Commission vet, and he's the track vet in Iowa, Prairie Metals. And he's probably done the most horses. He's done over 36 race horses. Dr. Stern, surgical vet out of San Francisco. He's important from the standpoint he has an MBA background. So when he started his career, he formed a medical device to sell to veterinary doctors. So he launched that, and then after he sold his company, he decided to become a surgical vet. So it gives us a lot of good insights. The growth drivers. We're going to be expanding the sales force. We have identified 3 to 5 that we'll be bringing on in a very short period of time, but we'll bring on 9 over the next 12 months. These will engage national and local distributors, but also now that we're allowing our key opinion leaders to start publishing papers and podium presentations, that will help drive the adoption of Kush from the vet market. We'll be increasing market awareness by trade shows, clinical education, white papers, digital outreach as a call to action to the consumers. We'll be publishing real feel-good stories. We have a nonprofit division called PetVivo Cares that will donate syringes to service dogs, military, police dogs, horses, and Humane Society. There's nothing more feel-good and passionate about the Humane Society where there's a basset hound named Frankie. It's been sitting there for a month. No one wants to adopt him because it has serious lameness issues. We inject with Kush, and literally within the week, Frankie's adopted, showing a video. He's running in the backyard with children. Those are very powerful messages to drive the consumers to talk to the vets. But not only that, many of these nonprofits have volunteer vets where we get the Kush into their hands. We're going to convert them into lifetime users. We have seen almost 100% adoption. We have over 50 vets right now using the product. It's all been word of mouth. Clinical studies. So all of our funding or all of our studies are on the human side because we were funded by the Department of Defense and National Institute of Health. So when we got the human device designation, we didn't have to do any studies. But now we're doing the studies, but it's not for regulatory, it's for marketing. So the Colorado State study will allow us to really go after the national distributors because they need a pet study, but their salespeople know our product, like our product. So we injected with COVID. We didn't inject the first dogs until May of 2021. So we should get an update somewhere around December because there's always an interim update. We believe this data to be really robust and it will show tremendous efficacy. The trial should take another total of 12 months from probably right now that will get published in the major trade journals. But that interim data, we're very comfortable would be enough to get some of these national distributors. And the reason I can say that is in all of our cases, we have injected dogs that were 10, 11, 12 years old with multiple joint issues. So on a scale 1 to 5, 5 being the worst, we were injecting 5s and bringing them back to 1s. All these studies, they basically find dogs that are at 1, mild case of osteoarthritis, and they're young dogs, like 5, 6 years old, do the injection, show a little improvement, and the success story. And one of the ways you can tell that the statistician and the research person is pretty comfortable with what data they're going to expect as the number of dogs in the study. We have 32 dogs in the study. Competitors have had to have 150 to 200 dogs. So the reason for that is the data is going to be robust. We're very confident that international launch into specific country distributors, and then expanding Kush into other indications and species like cats, and then eventually roll back into the human market. So let's look at the PetVivo highlight or thesis. We have a very large TAM, 4.4 billion in the US. That's just for dogs and horses. We'll be adding feline onto it. So we'll be able to show tremendous growth and possibility going forward. Increased humanization of companion animals is a major tailwind for what they're willing to spend on their pets. Kush is the optimal solution, disruptive solution for the management of osteoarthritis over the other current therapies, since we're not dependent on a biologic or a pharmacology approach. Vet exclusivity gives them increased margins and revenues. I mean, they're pretty much used to getting what the margins back 15 years ago. Cost-effective solution for the pet owners, and very little compliance required after the injection. Strong IP portfolio, 9 US, 12 foreign, and multiple patents pending. And what I'm saying here is that when you look at medical device companies, you generally, at this stage or this valuation, you generally see them still going through FDA. And that's the biggest risk in any biotech or medical device company is the FDA. We pretty much minimize that with the device designation on the human side. The second part is you always ask, can this company produce this product at large scale, extremely economical? So going forward, our gross profit margins at a certain volume will be north of 70%. So this going forward is we just have to focus on sales and marketing, and sales is clearly a function of marketing, and we'll know how to drive those variables. So that concludes our formal portion of the presentation. We'll open it up to Q&A.
Thank you, John. We do have some questions for you. Let's jump right in. We have a question from Ken Kamikaze. So will Kush be recommended for racehorses? And if so, will vets endorse it? And have any vets endorsed it thus far?
We have had multiple vets at racetracks use it because a lot of it, I think, is because what happened to Baffert at the Kentucky Derby. Our product through the human trials have shown that it's neutral to the body. Once it's injected into the body recognizes as a neutral substance, and it's the same particles that exist in natural cartilage. So there hasn't been any issues with racehorses. We have had vets injected at Belmont, the Preakness track, Canterbury. So we believe that's a potential large market, and because they draw the blood work and it doesn't show up in any way whatsoever. So we believe it will. And Dr. Gordon, who is the former vet at the Minnesota Racing Commission, is using it very extensively at Prairie Metals in Iowa.
Another question from Ken. Does Kush treat hip dysphagia in dogs?
Yes, it does. We have treated labs with that problem. It's basically any articulating joint that used to have cartilage that is shifted. So we're able to inject these particles. And once the particle goes in, it forms the scaffolding and protects or augments the existing cartilage. And it acts just like cartilage.
From Charles Robinson, are you giving guidance for revenues Kush is expected to generate over the next year?
Our focus is vet acquisition. So the guidance will come later on, but right now, all the marketing money and the drive is to get vets, because once you gather a vet in, like small animal vet, they tried the canine version of Kush, they'll adopt it, and then once they're adopted, it's much cheaper for us to launch other product lines like the feline version. So the analysts will come out with guidance here real soon.
From Jay Reagan, what are the biggest challenges that you're facing? And didn't you already launch an exhibit at a show already?
Yes, we were showing the product, but we weren't really pushing it because we got new packaging, we got the facility, the facility. So the packaging is really ESG oriented. It's made with potato starch. So the whole package can be tossed into the garden as fertilizer. And the only thing that can't be is the syringe. It has to go in the regular red recycling bin. So the real launch comes September 9th, or September 6th, I'm sorry, at the Western Veterinary Conference.
Fantastic. A question from Wilton Rye. How is the company currently capitalized, and will you need to go to the market to raise funds?
We're good for at least the next 18 to 24 months. We just did a NASDAQ uplift and closed on, I believe, 11.5 million.
Fantastic. A question from Darren Bissonette. How often does Kush need to be applied to an animal? And even if quality of life increases, will the animal still have to take it easy, or will it make a full recovery?
So what we have seen is the early dogs we injected were 5s. They were barely able to stand. And after the injection, dogs were running, like you couldn't tell they had an issue. And we have only had one dog that needed a second injection. And at the time of injecting that dog, we told the vet we thought he didn't use enough of the Kush syringe or the particles into the joint. And I think that was a user error, because after the second injection, the dog's been fine for 4 years and it's running 5 miles a day because both owners are marathon runners and the dog runs with them.
Fantastic. From Olin Mass, how many vets do you currently have utilizing Kush, and how do you plan to expand that network? Are vets where you plan to get the most of your business?
So there's currently 50 vets, and it's a 3-pronged approach. So the first one is we're hiring veterinary sales experts. They've been selling, 10, 15, 20 years to veterinary doctors. They have a very deep Rolodex. So that's our ground game. We go and just call on vets, and we're very comfortable. Once they try, the adoption rate is almost 100%. Now with small animals, it takes about 90 to 120 days because the vet will do the injection, and then when the vet sees the dog on a follow-up, they're very excited. Horses are a little different. Equine vets, once they inject, they notice it right away, and they inject. We literally had a track vet inject the first racehorse on a Saturday. Tuesday, he ordered 8 syringes for 4 other horses on Tuesday and wanted it overnight right away because he saw the instant results at the track. So that's how we do it from the ground game, but then we follow it up with the major conferences and the trade shows, and then that drive to the consumers, the call to action by using social media. Then the third one that really expands, and where we get the hockey stick growth in revenues, is when the Colorado state study starts giving interim results and final results. We feel we'll get the major national and international distributors with that.
That's great news. From Trevor Palantano, do you have any patents? And if so, how easy would it be for a larger competitor to come in with a similar product? So
we have a very extensive patent portfolio. So our general counsel is what got me involved in the company. He is a patent counsel for Frederickson Byron. He was a partner there, and he handled PetVivo's patents all the way. He called me up and says, John, this company has the deepest, most extensive patents. And you can see that when we talked about citations. But on top of that, we also have trade secrets that we can protect. You can't just look at the patents and duplicate it. We would have been duplicated a while ago because these patents have a very good long life. We keep the files open so we can keep adding to it. And the trade secrets, like I talked about, is much more important.
From Orlando Gorman, as it seems you're focused on veterinary medicine, is this Kush currently being used on humans? Could that be a new market for you?
As I stated, NIH and DOD gave us about $8 million in grant money, and that's all peer review for human use. We plan to come back to the human side, but I wanted to get into a position where we can negotiate from a position of strength as we address the human market, because to launch into the human market, you have to spend so much on marketing, and it makes tremendous sense to partner with an existing company. That existing company, when they know you're financially sound and you have the ability to do it yourself, that's when you get your better deals on partnerships.
From Roland Fuel, he says, I like where you're going with insurance companies. With regard to pet insurance, will you be marketing to those companies to get on their covered list?
Yes, that's the plan going forward. They may require the Colorado State study, but they may not, because the cost advantage, to do a joint replacement and rehab is actually over $6,000 for a dog. If they can just pay for an insurance for $600 and prevent that joint replacement, it's better for the pet consumer, because there's no trauma to the dog, and the dog can enjoy its life much, much faster.
Travis Kearney asks, do you have an estimate on how long this could extend the life of an animal due to the increased quality of life?
So there's a certain percentage of dogs that get put down because of lameness issues. I feel using the product with its ability to stay mobility at least a year or two, or maybe even longer. So one of the strategies is donating to service dogs, because they cost $30,000 to train. And the life expect serviceability is usually around 8 years, because at age 8, about 80% of all dogs will develop some form of osteoarthritis. And once they start getting that, they can't focus on their jobs. But if we can extend the life by 3 years, it really helps the soldier that's getting the service dog extend that life and not have to go through a dog change, because they're like, it's like family. And so we can avoid that separation and reduce the costs of training all these service dogs, get more useful life.
Josh Burton wants to know what the margins will be on Kush.
Margins? Was that the question? Yeah.
Yes.
So I said, in volume, we're going to get gross profit margins north of 70%.
Last question, John. This is from Lane Custer. So besides word of mouth, what is your marketing plan for Kush? And is there a way to market this product through big box pet stores and major online retail pet vendors? And if so, are you in discussions with any of them?
Well, I can't comment on discussions of any of them, but we're looking for all channels. And besides word of mouth, like I said, we're bringing on the sales team. Now we're going to do aggressive marketing through traditional channels as well as social media. And on top of that, there is sites now that are taking market away from the major distributors like Vetco. Basically, a veterinary doctor signs in, they can see the pricing of all competitors, of not competitors, but that carry the Kush product, and then they can order what is the cheapest.
All right, John. Well, we've really enjoyed your presentation. You're doing really great work for Man's Best Friend. So thank you so much for joining us on our conference, and we look forward to following up with future updates.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, everyone, our next guest, Digital Brands Group, which trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol DBGI, was postponed to our next conference on September 1st. So after our last presentation today, we'll post a link to register for that conference. Stay with us as we take a break and come back with an exciting presentation from another NASDAQ company. We have Acurx Pharmaceuticals. We'll be right back.